Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my latest video. We have officially arrived to week one of the NFL season. We had an awesome weekend of college football. Now we get the pro football starting up on Thursday night with the Cowboys and Eagles. And as I promised, like I've done for the several past few years, on Tuesdays you'll be getting my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses. As far as the waiver wire, that's where I'll start first. Just like I've always done, I'm going to give you guys my top quarterback out of the week, my top running back out of the week, my top wide receiver out of the week, tight end out of the week, and flex out of the week. All five of these players I will mention, they have to be available at least in 50% of the leagues, according to ESPN. And then one thing I will say before I dive into this week's video with the waiver wire, honestly, I don't like to mess with my roster after the draft, so I'm hoping that you guys did love your draft, but sometimes the draft doesn't fall your way. Maybe you took a player you're second guessing at this point. Maybe you had a early draft in August and the feelings on that player has changed, or maybe an injury or two has happened, which may either made him less valuable or more valuable, whatever the case may be. So things may have changed since you drafted your roster. So yeah, you shouldn't be adding players to your roster unless you just have some question marks, or if you did maybe select or draft a Chris Godwin or a Brandon Ayuk, and you can place one of those guys on your IR, then you can maybe pick up one of these players to add to your bench while those guys sit on your IR until they're back into the lineup. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this. My quarterback out of the week, I'm just going to go with a safe option, and just like I'm going with Matthew Stafford. He's only rostered on 32.6% of the leagues on ESPN. And the reason why I like him is just because he's got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Now, I don't think Matthew Stafford might not be a long-term option for you just because he is dealing with that back injury. Who knows how long he'll be in the lineup for the Rams. But say you drafted like a Drake May, or maybe you're taking a chance on Jordan Love to come through this year, but you don't really want to trust him in week one. I do think Matthew Stafford is a trustworthy option just because he's going to be on the field. Sean McVay confirmed that, and then he's got those two pass catchers in Adams and Puka Nacua that he can spread the ball to. My running back out of the week, I think he should be on more rosters. It's going to be Braylon Allen, the backup running back for the Jets. He's on currently 41.6% of the rosters on ESPN. Now, I wouldn't want to play him this week just because I do want to see how many touches he's going to get before I would insert him in any lineups, and he does have a tough matchup against a very good Steelers defense. But as I mentioned with Braylon Allen in my running back videos I did, at the beginning of August, I'm very high on what Braylon Allen can be for the Jets this year. I think Aaron Glenn, coming from the Detroit Lions, is going to want to kind of use Braylon Allen in that David Montgomery role within his offense. And then Breece Hall will kind of have that Jahmyr Gibbs role within the offense. So that's why I think he's going to potentially be valuable, even with Breece Hall splitting touches with him. And then there's a couple other things. Of course, if Breece Hall would get injured, all of a sudden Braylon Allen could jump up into like a high floor running back 2 status. And then even though Aaron Glenn said that they're not looking to trade Breece Hall, if this Jets season, if they're not winning before the trade deadline, and they don't intend to sign Breece Hall after this season to a long-term contract, it might make sense for them to trade him if there are running back injuries to a team that's looking to go on a playoff run where they can get the most value out of a potential trade now rather than letting him walk in the offseason. My wide receiver out of the week, this is a guy I feel like he should be on way more rosters than he is. Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, however you want to call him, the wide receiver for the Patriots. He's currently only on 19.6% of the rosters on ESPN. And he's a year 3 wide receiver. If you guys have been following along with me, the first video I did on my return to my videos here on YouTube was that I do love targeting year 3 wide receivers. I really like what I saw
from Pop Douglas last year. I thought he showed some chemistry with Drake May. I'm in the expectation with some other people. It seems like most people are on this expectation that Drake May is going to take a major step in year 2, and I think Demario Douglas is going to be part of that. Yes, they did sign Stephon Diggs. They gave him the contract. He's going to get his fair share of targets. But I have like this intuition or whatever that I think Douglas is going to have the most receiving yards for the Patriots by the end of the season. He's a guy where if you needed to play a wide receiver, you can consider it because they are going against the Raiders defense. Not the biggest fan of the Raiders secondary to start the season, but he should definitely be on some more benches where you are stashing him. And then if he starts seeing those consistent 7 to 9 targets plus that, I think he can work himself into like a maybe possibly wide receiver 2, but at least a wide receiver 3 status to begin the year. Tight end out of the week. I hope you guys selected a tight end to use. Tight ends are so tough. What I've been doing in my drafts, and I got one more draft to do tonight, is I just been going after elite tight ends. I just don't want to ever second guess myself having to stream a tight end. But say maybe you have a Kyle Pitts, you took a chance on him as your tight end 1 because you waited to draft your tight end. If you don't really trust that option to start at a tight end, you can always turn to Hunter Henry. He's currently only on 42.6% of the rosters. He's just always been a very solid tight end. He'll get you anywhere between 3 to 5 catches, anywhere between 25 to 45 yards, and then you're just betting on him getting a touchdown. So if you just want a safe high floor option for this week, Hunter Henry is somebody you could consider. My flex out of the week, I am going with the guy I've been hammering home, guys, for the Browns backfield. The rookie running back out of Tennessee, Dylan Sampson. He's only rostered on 27% of the rosters on ESPN this week. They have yet to sign Quinshon Judkins. Even though Quinshon Judkins has been cleared of his domestic dispute, there's still a ongoing NFL investigation into that. There's still a possible suspension for that. They have not signed him, so even if they signed him this week, I wouldn't expect Judkins to be on the field. He missed all of training camp, so there's going to have to be a ramp up period for Judkins when he does return to the Cleveland Browns. He's going to have to get in football shape. He's going to have to get acclimated to the scheme. So I'm expecting that Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson are going to split the touches. I'm not looking to necessarily rush Dylan Sampson into my lineup. I would rather stash him on my bench and see how the touches are split between Ford and him this weekend against the Bengals. But Sampson is one of those guys I want on my roster this week because let's just hypothetically say Sampson goes off for the Browns against that Bengals defense on Sunday. You don't have to fight for Sampson next week in the waiver wire. You can just go ahead and get him now and stash him. So yeah, those are my top waiver wire targets of this week. Matthew Stafford at quarterback, Braylon Allen at running back, Demario Pop Douglas at wide receiver, Hunter Henry at tight end, and then Dylan Sampson for my flex spot. Now my streamable defenses are the same thing. My top 5 streamable defenses. They're available at least in 50% of the leagues according to ESPN. Now, I'm going to try to remember to say this every week because I still get people that want to get upset. As I say every single year, streaming defense is a high-risk, high-reward play in fantasy football because you're going after the matchups, which are going to give you more potential value, more points than playing even a good defense against a great offense, right? You're going against the matchups, but sometimes you do get got. And sometimes those defenses do disappoint you. Now, as far as these defenses I'm going to be speaking about, I actually did a video, if you guys did miss it, 5 streamable defenses for week 1 that you should leave your draft with. 4 of those defenses still qualify for this list. The only defense that was in that video that did not make this list, that are rostered more than 50% of the rosters, is the Patriots defense I suggested against the Raiders. With that being said, I'm not going to go with too much depth because I went in so much depth as far as why I did like those matchups in that video. You can still go back and watch that video if you did not check that out. But my number 1 streaming defense I still like this week is going to be the Cardinals against the Saints. The Cardinals are currently only rostered on 46.1% of the rosters on ESPN. And it's strictly because I am very low on the Saints this year. They're starting Spencer Rattler, so it's basically he's making his 2nd or 3rd career start in week 1. I really like what this Cardinals defense can be this year. I think they're going to take the next step underneath Jonathan Gannon. So I can see this defense getting sacks, getting turnovers. I think this is a high ceiling play this week if you're looking to stream your defense in week 1. Another defense I like this week, which honestly I'm kind of surprised they're not rostered in that many leagues. Considering that the 49ers, I know they had a bad year last year, but they are so injured. But the 49ers against the Seahawks, they're only rostered in 16.6% of the leagues. They got Robert Saleh back as a DC, which I think is going to elevate that group. They basically retooled their defensive line, which is they added players that I really do like. They obviously do have Nick Bosa. They still got Fred Warner on the defense. And then why I like this matchup is they're going against a Seahawks offense that I'm just not necessarily trusting to begin the year. I have my personal doubts about the Sam Darnold experience in Seattle. I still think he's still prone to be that old Sam Darnold, which he can turn the ball over. Don't necessarily love the Seahawks offensive line, so I see some sacks and turnover opportunities. And one thing you can consider too if you want to stream the 49ers defense this week is in week 2 they're going to play the Saints. So you have an opportunity to stream the 49ers in week 1 and week 2 if you wanted to go with them. My number 3 streaming defense, as I said at the beginning, some of these defenses are very high risk, high reward, and that's obviously the Bengals defense. The Bengals defense looked terrible at the end of the year, and they have a new DC. They didn't really make much major additions. They lost some players, so who knows what this Bengals defense is going to look like. To no surprise, they're only rostered on 2.8% of the leagues on ESPN. Basically, what I'm betting on is that the Browns offense is not going to be that great to start the year. They got Joe Flacco at the quarterback position. We'll have to see if Joe Flacco plays like 2 years ago or if he played like he did with the Colts. And if he played like he did with the Colts, he's going to hold the ball too long. He's going to be a statue in the pocket, which is going to allow potential sacks to get over there. And then he was turning the ball over with either fumbles or interceptions last year for the Colts. So that's what's a high risk, high reward, is that you're going to be betting on the sacks and the turnovers. But obviously the Bengals defense does give a very low floor, so that's why I would prefer if you would go with the 49ers or Cardinals over them. Now, the Commanders against the Giants, that's another option I do like. The Commanders are only rostered on 13.4% of the leagues on ESPN. This is strictly because I do think there's going to take some time for this Giants offense to click. Russell Wilson will be starting at the quarterback position. I do think the Commanders do have the potential to get some pressure on Russell Wilson, which could potentially lead to turnovers. The reason why I don't have them over the Bengals, though, is I don't necessarily love divisional matchups. I like the 49ers more because of the Sam Darnold experience, but I just don't necessarily want to trust this Commanders defense over the Bengals just because the Giants did almost beat them a couple times last year. But with that being said, like I mentioned, the reason why I still do like them is I do think it's going to take a few weeks for this Giants offense to really click before you could so you could take advantage of that to stream your defense, stream a defense against their offense. Number 5 streaming defense, I don't necessarily love it just because the Dolphins do have a high potential to score points with the playmakers they have. But I still do like potentially streaming the Colts against the Dolphins this week. Colts are rostered on 33.4%, and this is strictly going to be sacks. The Dolphins might have one of the worst offensive line units in the league. Colts still have DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart up the middle. They still got guys on the edge that can get after the quarterback like Liata Latu and Kwity Paye. So I'm betting that they're going to be able to rack up sacks. And then if they can get the early pressure, because obviously Tua Tagovailoa has that quick release out of his hands. So if they can get after him quick and force him into quick decisions, then maybe they can lead that can lead to turnovers. Now this is another like high risk, high reward play because the Colts secondary is a little banged up right now. They basically signed Xavier Howard a couple of weeks ago, and now he's going to be one of their starting quarterbacks. But with that being said, they still have Charvarius Ward. They got Cameron Bynum in the backfield, in the back of the secondary, which can help force those turnovers. And Xavier Howard's a former Dolphin, so it's maybe a revenge game where he can get a pick 6 for you. So yeah, those are my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you have not subscribed to me on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. We just cracked over 120 subscribers. I would like to continue to see that number go up as we progress through this season. Next time you see me, you'll get me tomorrow. I'll be doing my top starts and sits for week 1 of the NFL season. Normally, like this video and tomorrow's video will come out most of the time at night because I have a day job. I just happen to be off of my day job this week, so you're getting this a lot earlier than it will normally come out, just as a heads up. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace out.